Well, hey, all you cool cats and kittens. It's Mr. D. And sorry, no hats in class. Uh Today I'm pre-recording this so I don't have to do it 6 times. I'm going to show you how to do the two hardest things in this class. One, the valve adjustment, and two, the governor adjustment, which is under this tank. So, in order to do a valve adjustment, I prepped a couple things. First, I removed the exhaust and the heat shield because if that was here, the visibility would be rather poor. So depends on the motor, but yes, you would have to do that as well. So first step, I just obviously remove that, would be to remove the valve cover. And if you've noticed, I've cheated and I've already removed 3 of the 4 bolts. And you remove the valve cover. Be careful not to break the gasket. Remove the valve cover gasket as well. I'm just jumping right into it, aren't I? I wonder if my students ever sit and think about how weird it is that I'm just in my garage talking to myself or with my hands while you guys watch this. So yeah, the filming part's a little weird. So these are the tops of your valves. These are the rocker arms. We're going to zoom in a little bit here. These are the rocker arms. As the push rod comes up from the bottom here, it rocks this like that. And when it pushes down, that is what's opening and closing the valve inside the cylinder head. So the valve gap's actually referring to the distance between the top of the valve right here and this rocker arm. So you could see how there's like a very, very small space. And we are actually going to do this. It's in thousandths of an inch. So to do a valve adjustment, to make your life easier, you could be like as special as me and realize, okay, the intake valve is closer to the carburetor. The exhaust valve is right by the exhaust hole right here. So you need to perform this task at top dead center. So the piston comes all the way up, top dead center on the intake stroke. How do you do that? Well, if you were to slowly pull the pull start, like that, you'll notice these rockers, oh my God. Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to remove the spark plug because we have to see top dead center anyway. So I also pre-loosen that for you so you guys don't have to have your heads explode with a long video. You remove the spark plug. That will decrease the compression because you now have a big hole open at the top of the cylinder right there. And if you slowly pull this, you can start to see, okay, I also pre-loosened that. That was supposed to be a surprise, but you can see these lifters or rockers moving. So how do you know when it's at top dead center on the intake stroke? Man, my eyes are too good. I did not torque that one head bolt. I noticed it was loose. So in the direction of rotation, you now saw the exhaust valve just moved. And the 4-stroke cycle is intake, compression, power, exhaust. So after exhaust comes the intake stroke. That valve just opened because it pushed down. Now it comes back up. And to make sure you're at top dead center, you look inside the spark plug hole for when you see the piston come all the way up to the top. So right now, if you look in there, I'm going to do my absolute best to show you this at the proper angle. You can kind of see, sorry, this is absolutely terrible. You can see at the top, it's gray now. And that gray is the top of the piston. So if you look, both valves now appear to be or seem to be loose. So how do you do the adjustment? Well, what you need to do is, I'm going to put it sideways so you can see what's happening here, but you will loosen up the lock screws, which are the black or gray or gunmetal colored set screws in the middle. You never, ever use a wrench on these big ones because they are locked in place. If you just were to put a ratchet on here like this and crank it, you would completely strip out the studs that these rockers are mounted on, and you're out about $28. So what do? you get one of these, and this is an L-head Allen key or an Allen wrench. You see it's a little hexagon. You will gently loosen the lock screw. So there you go. This one's still tight. Use the L as the handle, crank it loose. I back these out extra distance so you can now grab the larger locking nut or hold down nut, and notice how it moves freely by hand. You don't even need a wrench for this once it's loose because you undid the lock. So from the side, you can see now that this just moves quite freely. The next step, so first step was obviously remove the valve cover, then remove the spark plug, put the piston at top dead center on the intake stroke, loosen the locking screws. All of this is incredibly easy. And then find the proper thickness of the feeler gauge, which is going to be 004. So valves in these engines are adjusted to 4,000 7-inch, and I don't know if it's possible for you to even see that, but it says 004 right there. You put the feeler gauge in between the rocker and the top of the valve. Tighten the large nut with your hand, and then you'll notice that the feeler gauge is stuck in here now. It could actually, if we put this engine upside down, it would hang by that. Hold the large nut still and just tighten the locking screw. Okay? And when you pull that out, now this setting, or the distance between this rocker and that, is 4,000 7-inch. So there we go. I'm tightening the nut, making sure the feeler gauge gets stuck in there. Tightening the lock screw. It's still in there. This is tight. This is tight. Pull this out. And that is a valve adjustment. And if you're thinking right now, this doesn't seem hard at all, do you know why it's so easy? Or why it's so hard, excuse me, for so many students is they forget to put the piston at top dead center. So if you notice, let's take that piston off of top dead center. Look how tight this valve is right now. It's all the way down. So students will loosen this up and then do the valve adjustment. The piston has to be in the proper position before you can do this. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is a valve adjustment. It's quite simple. What do you do after that? Make sure you get your valve cover gasket back on. You put your valve cover on. You start your nuts and bolts by hand. Beep-boop-bop, just like that. I'll do the top and the bottom. And in the spirit of keeping this video shorter than 15 minutes, I'm not going to put it together all the way. I'm just putting these in so I do not lose them. All right. Next adjustment we will do is the governor adjustment. This is the second hardest thing in the class. You remove the switch plate like this. You remove the 4 bolts holding the gas tank on and get it out of the way. And then you make sure you're not scratching up your fancy table like I did last time. And then you look at the top of the motor. So I'm going to do my absolute best to get you a super solid bird's eye view. All right. This is the top of the motor. So the front right here is where you go from high to low speed. And this is the back of the motor where the crank comes out. So this is your governor right here. How do you do a governor adjustment? First step, put the throttle to rabbit or high speed. You'll notice now that this is tense. If this is down here, it's allowed to move on slow speed. On high speed, it will not move. Then you loosen up the 10 millimeter nut over here. That is it. And then before I do that, if you look, the top of that is actually a slight little socket hex. So you gently make sure this is on. We are still at full speed or full throttle. You grab either a teeny tiny wrench or, if I prepped well enough, a socket that fits that little hex. You twist it to the left. So notice this only moves this much, like literally an eighth of an inch, a 16th of an inch. You turn it counterclockwise or to the left. So lefty loosey, you twist it to the left, it stops moving. And as you are holding that pressure, twisting it to the left, you tighten the nut. And that is a governor adjustment. And if you're like, howdy, how, Mr. D, is this the hardest part of this class? Well, students loosen this up and they leave it on slow throttle position, and then they tighten the nut. Some students leave it on high throttle position and tighten the nut. You need to twist the small governor lever right up here. You need to twist it counterclockwise, and while you are twisting it, that is when you tighten the nut. And if you can do those two simple things, that is a governor adjustment. So that, everybody, I don't know why I'm yelling. I think I'm just excited. That is a governor and valve adjustment for our classrooms, Briggs & Stratton, 4-stroke engines. I've had a lovely semester with all of you. It's very sad that we never got to be in person, but you can stop in room 525 once we get back in session for free hugs, high fives, handshakes, knuckle busts, or goodness knows what. But the goal is I would love to have all of you take autos next year. I think we would have a blast. It's going to be the best year ever because everything is going to be that much sweeter. I think it's all kind of gained an appreciation for us to really enjoy what we do. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I was going to joke about hitting like and subscribe. Don't do that. This is a Fenton account. So if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I am not making an Edpuzzle out of this, so you don't have to do any extra work. Have a wonderful afternoon. I hope you enjoy the video.